Bud Not Buddy, Chapter 6. We're starting at the just under the top of page 49, the second paragraph, the second little indent or bump in there. As we get going here, I was wrong. I told you that you'd hear the word considerate in the last section, and that's not true. You're going to hear about it in this section. Remember, being considerate means thinking about others. We're going to be continuing to self-monitor here. And part of self-monitoring is trying to make sure you understand why the author would have included information about whatever it is they're writing about in this particular section. So be asking yourself, why did Christopher Paul Curtis write about this? Why is this in here? And just like before, we're going to use stop, think, paraphrase to make sure that we really understand each section. I stood in line with my pretend family for a long, long time. Everybody was very quiet about standing in line, even my pretend brother and sister and all the other kids. When we finally got around the last corner and could see the door and folks going in it, it seemed like a bubble busted, and people started laughing and talking. Wait a minute, that was a simile. A simile is when you compare two things using like or as. So it said, everybody was very quiet about standing in line, even my pretend brother and sister and all the other kids. Okay, so everybody's super quiet. When we finally got around the last corner and could see the door and folks going in, it seemed like a bubble busted and people started laughing and talking. That like a bubble busted is a simile. They're comparing the experience of the people being quiet and all of a sudden not being quiet, all of a sudden laughing and talking, to a bubble, like a soap bubble, bursting or busting, breaking. Now, people being quiet and then all of a sudden talking isn't really like a soap bubble busting. But that's how they're comparing it to show you that it's something that happened all at once. You can kind of imagine the pop as people start to talk and laugh. And that's what a simile is. It's when you use the words like or as to compare two things that you wouldn't normally think of as going together. But the comparison helps you understand something at a deeper level. Like we can understand that they weren't talking, kind of like the bubble floating in the air. And then all of a sudden the bubble popped and they started talking. There's not really a bubble there. It's just the people starting to talk. The comparison helps us understand how sudden it was. The main thing people were talking about was the great big sign that was hanging over the building. It showed a gigantic picture of a family of 4 rich white people sitting in a car driving somewhere. You could tell it was a family because they all looked exactly alike. The only difference amongst them was that the daddy had a big head and a hat, and the mama had the same head with a woman's hat, and the girl had 2 big yellow pigtails coming out from above her ears. They all had big shiny teeth and big shiny eyes and big shiny cheeks and big shiny smiles. Shucks, you'd need to squint your eyes if that shiny family drove anywhere near you. You could tell they were rich because the car looked like it had room for 8 or 9 more people in it, and because they had movie star clothes on. The woman was wearing a coat with a hunk of fur around the neck, and the man was wearing a suit and a tie, and the kids looked like they were wearing $10 a piece jackets. That would be a lot of money in that time period. Writ about their car in fancy letters, it said, "There's no place like America today." My pretend daddy read it and said, well, you gotta give them credit. You wouldn't expect that they'd have the nerve to come down here and tell the truth. This is definitely a section where a little self-monitoring needs to come into play. because I need to make sure I understand. Am I understanding this? There aren't really any strange words, but let me try telling what's happening in my own words and see if I can tease that out. So they're getting ready to go into the mission, the place where they're going to get breakfast. And everybody's really quiet until they see this giant billboard with a family of four rich white people. And the billboard says, "There's no place like America today." And it's like they're saying, hey, America today is a great place to be in. But at the same time, there was that really huge line of people who don't have enough food to eat. So it seems to me like the really important part here is that Christopher Paul Curtis is trying to get me to notice how the line is long and how the people don't have enough to eat and how they're willing to wait there for food. As I'm doing this self-monitoring, it helps me make sure I'm making sense of what's going on in here. For the next section, I'm going to ask you to take a look at your own self-monitoring and make sure you understand what's happening here. There's no stop, think, paraphrase for right now. I'm going to pause the video and I want you just to write "got it" if you listen to this all the way through and understand what it is to self-monitor from the example.